The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to this Futuresource webinar. Thank you for joining us, and we are now ready to begin. I will hand you over to my colleague, Oliver Roundtree, who's a market analyst here at Futuresource, and he will present this webinar for you.
Thanks, Andy. Hello and welcome to the third of our three-part webinar series at CES on day 5 of the CES show. I'm Oliver Roundtree, market analyst here at Futuresource, looking at personal devices, including wearable technologies. We chose 3 topics for our webinar series: 4K, audio, and wearable tech. And based on our time in Vegas so far, it's clear that these are 3 of the hottest areas at CES 2014 in terms of the volume of products announced, vendors, and media attention, and where we're seeing the most significant innovations. Today's webinar is focused on wearable technology, and I'll provide you with our key takeaways from the show and explain how we expect this to shape the development of the category. Everything we're presenting today comes hot off the heels of the press events we've attended over the past few days and walking the exhibition floor and talking to people on the booths. As you may already know, Futuresource is a specialist research and consulting company with a history stretching back to the 1980s. We provide our clients with global market analysis and insights in consumer and professional electronics, digital imaging, entertainment media, broadcast, content storage, and we operate on a global scale. We have a dedicated consumer electronics team which covers the worldwide market for all major home and personal CE categories, forecasting nearly 30 individual categories across nearly 30 countries in every major geographic region. In addition to detailed market data and forecasts, we provide strategic updates on relevant market segments, such as the topics covered by this webinar series. So before we delve into the detail, just a little bit of housekeeping. Your phones have been muted. As we're condensing this session down into 20 minutes, we won't have time for questions. However, we are recording this session and we'll make it available to you next week. And we can take any questions that you have offline and follow up with you later if you wish to learn more. So without further ado, let's delve into the detail. So at CES this year, wearable technology has been absolutely one of the biggest trends, evident by the number of product announcements and the interest shown in the area. So in terms of new products announced, in smartwatches, it's been a really big category. So there's been Intel having announced a sort of a product concept which is sort of geographically specific and give you notifications based on the location of the wearer. Pebble, which is an established smartwatch brand, has released an updated model, the Pebble Steel, with a new look and a higher average price. MetaWatch is also an established brand and has got a newer look, sort of trying to appeal to a more fashionable audience. And the Martian Notifier, which is a wireless watch, which has also been on the market for a while, has also got an updated product line. In activity trackers, which is one of the largest categories that we saw in 2013 in market value, there's been a lot of new announcements with big brands like Sony and LG moving into the area. So the Sony Smartband was one of Sony's big announcements at CES, and the idea of this is to log your life in more depth than traditional activity trackers, inputting sort of general activities like which movies you watch in a day and where you've been and where you've seen certain things. So really playing off a sort of a more sophisticated app and sort of live tracking idea. The LG LifeBand Touch is also a move into the activity tracking segment from a very large CE brand, while the Garmin VivoFit is the newly announced activity tracker from Garmin, sort of a traditional fitness brand, more stronger generally in sort of established fitness categories with dedicated fitness consumers. And the Polar V800 is maybe a slightly more sophisticated activity tracker and GPS watch, aimed at appealing to more hardcore users, but still offering this kind of life tracking technology, which has been popularized by Fitbit, Jawbone, and Nike. In terms of other areas where there's been announcements, there's been some new products sort of out there in smart glasses with the Epson Vario BT200 and Lumos DK40 as examples, but most of these are currently more concept and not quite consumer ready, and those that are out there we see to have somewhat limited appeal to consumers right now. And other interesting areas of wearable technology, as it's quite a disparate category at the moment, include LG's heart rate earphones, which are able to measure the heart rate while exercising. So that's a potential interesting new product category. And also other things like Netatmo June, which measures sunlight exposure and gives you a warning if you've been exposed to too much sun in a day. So clearly there's been a lot of activity in this area at CES, and this is very much in line with what we've seen in the last year, with interest in the area increasing dramatically. So I'd like to give a bit of context to the findings at CES with some of the results of our 2013 November report on wearable technology, in which we looked at a number of product segments across fitness, watches and smart glasses, and we saw that currently the market's really dominated by fitness devices. So with the largest product category with a value of over $3 billion in 2013 was activity trackers or activity monitors. So these are wearable devices with sensors to track metrics such as footsteps, mileage, and calorie expenditure, and they also have pedometers, accelerometers or altimeters, and they sync with external devices, often wirelessly, to analyze data from the user. And key products here are the Fitbit and the Jawbone and Nike. This is a fairly low average price, so quite accessible to consumers. And then there's the sort of more established fitness categories. So wearable GPS devices are a very significant category still, dominated by more traditional fitness brands. And we saw this still have a value of over $2.6 billion in 2013, having grown over 20% in over 2012. And this includes combination GPS and heart rate monitor devices. So we have a separate category for standalone dedicated heart rate monitors, often chest worn with a strap, which is also a very significant product category, worth almost $1.3 billion in 2013. Also a growing market, although not at the pace of the others. Other wearable fitness devices include, in particular, pedometers and foot pods. And this, while still a significant category, is not on the same scale as the others and is declining due to threats from alternative devices, including activity trackers and smartphones. Currently, watches are a relatively small category by comparison. So we separated the market into wireless watches and smartwatches, reflecting the fact that there's a very, very significant variation in functionality at the moment in the market. So wireless watches would include things like the Casio G-Shock series with Bluetooth, which, while we considered it to be worth considering in a related category, we wouldn't consider to be a full smartwatch device. So wireless watches we're just considering to be timekeeping devices worn on the wrist with some kind of wireless technology such as Bluetooth or ANT+, and able to interact with other devices such as smartphones. And then full smartwatches like the Galaxy Gear are a wireless watch with more sophisticated processing functionality and the ability to install third-party applications, as well as often touch-sensitive screens and operating systems. So smartwatches currently having about $130 million value in 2013, but set to grow strongly from there. Wireless watches still relatively small, and smart glasses, which are smart devices featuring a generally monocular head-mounted display and with wireless technology to connect to other devices and some kind of input capacity. This is still a relatively, well, a very small category, with only the Google Glass being a currently commercially viable option, and this not fully available outside of a very limited number of consumers. In terms of the key brands in the areas, so activity trackers dominated by Nike, Fitbit, Jawbone, and other traditional fitness brands moving into the area, such as Polar and Garmin. But between the top three, making up about 80% of the market volume in 2013, and set to grow strongly next year. Anticipated entrants, of course, being Sony and LG, having announced new products, as well as a large number of other brands. In traditional fitness, is dominated by Garmin, Polar, Sunto, who have large volume in the categories discussed before, and also Adidas and Nike having some volume there as well. Wireless watches is a mix of traditional watch brands such as Casio and Citizen, as well as new emerging brands like Cuckoo and Martian. Other watch brands are anticipated to be looking into entering the market in the next year or two, including sort of premium brands such as Rolex, which are exploring the option. In terms of smartwatches, it's also varied between traditional CE brands such as Samsung and Sony, which of course have their own smartwatches with the Galaxy Gear and Sony Smartwatch 2, but also being challenged by newer brands such as Pebble and IME, who've had some success in 2013. Gaining popularity and boosted by crowdfunding like Kickstarter. Smart glasses include Google currently, but other brands are rumored to be entering, including Samsung, Apple, and Microsoft. So currently smartwatches are a very small share of the total watch market in developed countries, so including USA, Europe, and Japan. So we do expect this to make up an increasing share. So by 2015, we expect 5% of the watch market to be made up of connected watches. So still a relatively small share, but growing significantly, with the watch market seeing an overall decline of 4% from 2013 to 2015. The pricing of watches is very significant for smartwatches moving forward, as there's a lot of volume at the low end of pricing between $10 and $15, making up over 50% of the market volume. And of course, smartwatches will be weighted towards a higher price category than this, from between $150 and $300 is where it's positioned at the moment. With Pebble at the lower end of this, with their older model at $150, and currently the Galaxy Gear at the higher end of this at $300. So we consider this to be quite a price-sensitive category. So it will make a big difference, sort of the degree of price decline over the next year or two. However, we do anticipate that Apple will be entering the market with its iWatch, and the price that Apple chooses will have a big impact both on the average price of the category as well as on the growth of the category over the next few years. If they choose a more aggressive price point and aim to use it as an accessory for a smartphone, then volume growth could be much more significant and much more rapid. Newer releases are spread out within that price category, with a lot of the newer brands aiming to be quite price competitive, between $150 and $250. In terms of the features of smartwatches, at the moment the market is very, very disparate, with very varied set of functions, and battery life being a key variable between products. So at the moment, the camera is a very rare feature, with Galaxy Gear being one example of a smartwatch containing one. In the future, it would obviously be a desirable feature, but this is very much limited by the battery life of the devices. Given their small size, there's not much space to be increasing battery capacity. So we would consider it to be likely that that cameras won't become too prevalent amongst smartwatches unless battery life can be improved. In terms of screens, there's also a significant variation, with watches such as the Galaxy Gear having a bright LCD display, most of these being around 1 or 2 inches. But other options such as the Pebble watch has an e-paper display, which allows for much longer battery life, sort of 5 to 7 days. There's also more basic wireless watches that have an analog display with a very small screen, or even no screen and just notifications. There's also the possibility in the future of flexible or curved displays being used to leverage wrist space more effectively, which we consider to be a significant possibility, and a lot of screens will, of course, be touch screens, but e-paper does have a lot of advantages, in particular that expanded battery life. We don't see the significant opportunity for battery life to be improved over the next few years, except through more efficient applications. So this will, of course, be a huge limiting factor on features. In terms of wireless technology, we expect Bluetooth Classic to be moving towards low power alternatives, in particular Bluetooth Low Energy with ANT+ making up some share of the market. We don't expect smartwatches with phones to make up a significant share of the market. We do anticipate it to be primarily devices paired with a smartphone, playing off the smartphone's functionality, but it is possible that these devices could gain popularity and somewhat supplant smartphones over the next few years, but we consider this to be a fairly unlikely possibility. So in terms of the demand for smartwatches at the moment, it's still being defined how these devices are going to be used and what are going to be the drivers of uptake. They are including a lot of different functions, connecting to social media and allowing for notifications from the phone. But one very significant consideration is the possibility of incorporating fitness applications. So given the growth of activity trackers in particular over the last few years, clearly there's potential for them to incorporate fitness functionality, even heart rate tracking. They'll of course enhance smartphone communication, allowing users to see notifications, as well as controlling music. And there's also the possibility that with cameras, wearable cameras and smart glasses, you could be capturing your environment at all times, allowing sort of evidential protection in case of unfortunate circumstances. We think that apps will be a very significant driver of smartwatches, as these will define what users can do on their devices. At the moment, there's a fairly limited number of apps utilizing smartwatches effectively, but the possibilities of having these devices available on your wrist at all time allow for interaction with a lot of other devices, as well as yet unexplored options. So that'll be a very interesting determinant of how the market develops over the next few years. As it stands, smartwatches and wireless watches are a relatively small category for 2013, but we do expect very significant growth over the next 2 years, with the market driven initially by the uptake of smartwatches, including the Galaxy Gear and the anticipated iWatch, with the market approaching 10 million by 2015. 10 million units. Of course, if more brands come into the market with more aggressive price points and that killer application, then it might be that market growth is much more rapid. But as it stands, we don't expect it to become a huge mass market product before sort of 2017. So while it will be picking up in the next couple of years, it won't be on the scale of tablets or smartphones quite yet. In terms of the total wearables market as it stands, in terms of the total fitness market as it stands, activity trackers in 2013 make up 57% of the market, having grown very significantly in 2013 over 2012. Brands such as Fitbit and Jawbone have grown increasingly popular, and with the emergence of new CE brands moving into that area, we expect it to become even more popular over the next few years. However, the possibility of smartwatches, including some of the activity tracker functionality, will potentially be a limiting factor in activity tracker growth beyond 2014. In terms of the rest of the fitness market, we expect it to be more or less stable over the next few years. But certainly not an overall volume decline, although falling ASPs may lead to some decline in market value. In terms of the functionality of these devices, we expect them to be moving increasingly towards smartwatches. So they'll be there'll be increasing convergence upon the smartwatch category. So where smartwatches are connected and multifunctional devices, we expect wearable GPS devices, activity trackers, and wireless watches to increasingly incorporate multifunction applications and to be increasingly connected, as well as regular watches more and more increasingly incorporating wireless technology and moving to becoming wireless watches. So it could be that the wireless watch market almost grows by default as sort of traditional watch brands includes that technology without marketing it explicitly as a wireless watch. So looking at the market overall, over the forecast period, we are expecting fitness to remain the dominant category. So in 2013, fitness products made up 95% of the wearables market volume. By 2015, we still expect it to make up 84% of the market volume. So with smartwatches growing in particular, we expect that to decline by 2017, although the growth of activity trackers will certainly make it still a very significant growth market. In terms of the geographic distribution, the USA is currently the dominant market globally, making up 46% of the global market in 2013. We expect the USA's share of the global market to decline by 2015 by 2017 becoming 33% of the total global market, although it will still be a more significant share than perhaps in other product categories such as smartphones. But markets such as China will, of course, be very significant in this space. So, to conclude, wearables is, of course, a very significant growth area with a lot of interest demonstrated by CES, the new products available and new brands entering it. Fitness is currently dominating the market, led by activity trackers, but we do expect smartwatches, which are currently fairly niche, to grow very quickly over the next few years. But it's unlikely that they will displace smartphones in terms of functionality, but they may well be incorporating fitness applications, which will of course impact upon the fitness wearables market. Smart glasses, we don't anticipate to have very significant growth by 2015, as we only expect Google and possibly other smaller brands to be entering the market in 2014. The market will become more diverse by 2015, but we expect the consumer appeal to be limited in the next couple of years. Apps will be absolutely key to smart wearables success, as this is going to define how users are interacting with their devices and how this functionality is leveraged, and whether this is something that is really desirable to consumers. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. The slides will be available in the next few weeks, as well as a recording of this webinar. And if you have any further questions, then please do feel free to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to fill you in. Thanks very much.